I think it's been a number of years since I've been up here speaking about this topic, back to the same ones. Although we're always in a different place, so there's always new inspiration around it. But he writes for 3 weeks in a row about prayer. He doesn't really do that about any other topic so specifically here, even though there's a general underlying, overlying, all-encompassing theme to everything he's written. But very specifically, he writes about prayer, and it always gets my attention. Now, I don't know about anybody else here, but I know I pray actually many times a day, every day. It's a thing about Ananda. We pray before we do anything. And we always remember, before we meditate, before we eat, when we start a meeting. But when this happens, these readings, I ask myself, am I praying? Am I really praying? I remember one year, some years ago now, Krishna Das up at the village was giving a talk. And I don't remember what the topic was, but in the course of the talk, he was relating a story. He said, Swamiji looked at me one day, this is Krishna Das, and he said, well, you do pray, don't you? And Krishna Das said, of course. But then he said, for weeks, he couldn't get it out of his mind. He was saying to himself, I pray. Of course I pray. Do I pray? Yes, I pray. Because I think he felt in the vibration of the question that Swamiji was asking him, or really saying, well, you pray, don't you? But it was a deeper communication. Swamiji was saying to him, are you praying? Are you centering yourself? Are you aware of the vibrational exchange of energy that goes on? In essence, really, are you taking this communication with God seriously? So each year I come back to it. Well, I pray, and then I say, do I pray? And I have to ask myself the question. Sometimes I'm so worried about what the prayer is going to be. What am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? I'm not really right with God. But when I read this reading, and last week's, Lakshmi was talking about, what was the topic? You forget it. What is the best way to pray? That's what it was. And then next week is, and today is, why tell God anything when he already knows everything? And then next week, we'll hear somebody talk about faith is a call to prayer, and prayer is a call to faith. So very clearly, Swamiji is trying to say to us, pay attention to what it means to pray. And then last night, when I was thinking about whispers, and wherever you are, Steve, I loved that whisper. It was so, I could have just sat here and cried rather than speaking, but it really energetically brought us to the place to be able to hear and expound on this topic. But Yogananda, who for many of us is our guru, and he's thought of that way by many around the world as a true avatar. It means nothing that he did here was just wasted, unthought out, meaningless. Every word of everything he ever said, every action holds within it a lesson for us, often a seed for a lifetime. Well, he wrote this book called Whispers from Eternity. We read from it at least every week. Many of us read from it more often. It's a book of hundreds, literally hundreds. I wanted to look to see how many, but I forgot, of prayers that came to him and that he prayed. So it's not just like, oh, he wrote a book of prayers. He was constantly in that level of communion with God. And he says that to us. He instructs us at the beginning of that book. In fact, he said, when I am gone, read my whispers. They're whispers from eternity, from this infinite consciousness. So he left us this incredible legacy of praying. Now, we can read those whispers, as I said. We do. It's also beautiful to feel your own inspiration, to sit quietly and just feel, what is it that I need to say to God today? Because it matters. It's not a simple request. That's not what's going on. It's a deep vibrational exchange of energy that is literally changing the universe. That's what happens when we pray believing, when we pray with energy, when we pray with devotion. Everything can shift. I'd like to share 2 stories with you, though there are many, of course. Yesterday, I was having just a beautiful visit with my and our dear friends, Devyani and Pavan. And we were talking about many things, but I asked their permission to share this, so I see they walked in a little bit ago, and I think it's fine. Some of you may know that maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, it doesn't matter, Pavan started getting very sick. And it turned out that he was in what's called renal failure. Literally, his kidneys were failing. And I was with them at the time, not that it matters, but communicating a lot about it, which we were sharing yesterday too. It was very touching for many of us, their family. And ultimately, they went to India, and Pavan had a kidney transplant. Not just any kidney transplant, but Devyani gave him a kidney. It's very deep, all of this. And he said to me yesterday, at some point, Devyani was in the kitchen, but he said to me, you know, Shanti, when I was 16 years old, I went to their home, I saw her. If this isn't exact, it's close. He was just looking right at me. He said, I asked myself, when will I marry her? The instant he saw her. Just a very deep, beautiful, inspired, true love affair. But that's hardly the point of the story. I just had to tell it. When Devyani gave him a kidney, so he's having this major surgery. They're going to open him up and put her kidney inside of him. But she's also having a major surgery because she has to give up the kidney. And she said to me, there wasn't, as I was laying on the gurney, there wasn't, her words, so much as a flutter in my heart. Nothing, no fear, nothing but joy, nothing but readiness. She said, and then he came to me. Everybody was praying for us. In that moment, she said, how could that be? That you would have it's a major surgery, and not even for an instant feel any fear. Everybody was praying, and we were. And I'm sure people all around the world were praying. Those prayers in the ether were received in Delhi. She was conscious of it. So when we pray, there is so much potential power in every prayer. We need to remember it. When I lead our healing prayers now, we rub our hands together, we get this energy going. We raise our hands, we chant Om. When I'm leading these days, for maybe a year now, I always remind myself, everyone in the room, we have the power to change anything in the world because we have this power. We are made in God's image. He made us this way. If we remember, we can send a little message to Delhi, India, and it's received, and lives are changed. That's what happens. It's so beautiful when we think of it and remember it. I'd like to share another story, charming story. Not that long ago, as most of you know, a group of us went to Los Angeles on pilgrimage. And we were sitting up where, at this place in Encinitas, for those of you who have been there, in what's called the Encinitas Grounds and Hermitage, but sitting up on this platform that remains where this temple that was built for Yogananda by his disciples went crashing into the sea not long after it was built. But it has a certain power and energy. So we were up there and we were praying and meditating, and we had this very touching and deep experience. One of the SRF brothers was with us when we're up there. We had asked. We always like to get together with them when we can. And they tell us stories, and he was very sweet. He was a little shy, and he said, "Oh, but you know all these stories already." And I said to him, "Probably we do, but we'd love to hear you tell them again. We'd love to hear them from your perspective." And then, after a little while up there, Lakshmi had printed out Yogananda's poem, God, God, God. We say it here, we sing it here. Beautiful. And so we were all going to sit right up there and read it together. And I said to the brother, "You'll read with us." And he said, "No, no, no." And I said, "Oh, come on, we're all brothers and sisters." I said, "We're at least cousins." I don't want to push him too far. But I said, "Please read with us. This poem is so sacred." So after a little, not pushing, but invitation, he agreed. And I'm saying this all because it was a sacred moment. We all read this prayer. He was in tears. Many of us were in tears. So we were sharing on this sacred ground that's handled by SRF. Hasn't always been easy for us communicating with SRF. But it was beautiful. And then we sat and we meditated and we left. And he was very touched. He said to me, "Thank you for making me do that." I said, "Well, I didn't exactly make you, but I'm glad you did." It was a precious moment, impregnated with God's presence. Later that day, Jen, one of the people, one of our teachers here, I'm looking to see if she's up there, but she's not. It's okay. She was in the SRF bookstore, and she hears this woman say to the woman behind the counter, "Do you know what this is? Do you print these or sell these?" And the woman takes this God, God, God from her and said, "No, we don't print this. I don't know where it's from." And she said, like, "It's a miracle. I was just sitting in the gardens, praying, talking to Master, and suddenly this poem fell into my lap." And Jen heard this, but she didn't say anything, but she came and told us it was a miracle. It was a miracle. She prayed hard enough. You know, we could say, "Oh, we were there, somebody put it on the railing probably," and we know. But what difference does it make? Master gave her that prayer, that poem, in answer to her deep prayer. It's absolutely beautiful that that happened. Prayer is powerful when we remember to stop and really connect with God. When Jyotish tells this story, I mean, it sounds silly, doesn't it, because we're praying. But think of how many times you've just prayed unconsciously. I bet we all have. It's just what happens. But if we can remember to impregnate every word as we're praying with our deep devotion, with our true love of God, with that genuine desire for God's presence to fill us, miracles happen. What we call miracles. It's simply those moments where our energy is completely and perfectly aligned with divine energy. That's what a miracle is. That's what happens when we find ourselves in that place of oneness. I bet that woman was praying very hard. And she was like, look what Master, and for the rest of this life, she'll have it. Look what Master, he materialized this, and he sent it to me. It's so touching, very, very sweet. Jyotish tells us a story, many of you have heard it, when he went to see Ananda Ma. And he said they had collected malas and taken them, and he was carrying all of these malas, these prayer beads, to Ananda Ma. Very great woman, Indian saint, for those of you who might not know her. And she had a very deep and sweet connection with Swamiji. She had many beautiful, not just kind, but divine messages for him, I would say, in the form of words that she would frequently tell other people. They were deeply connected. Anyway, Jyotish was there with a group of people, and he said to her, Ma, could you bless these mala? And she said, why would you ask me to bless these mala? She said, you know, God's grace is like the sunshine. It's constantly shining everywhere. God's grace and God's love is like the sunshine, constantly shining everywhere. Meaning, you don't have to bring these malas to me. I don't need to bless them. Receive God's grace wherever you are. It's there. And then Jyotish said to her, which I love this part, and I love it when he tells it. Jyotish is it doesn't even quite say who he is, but the spiritual director of Ananda Worldwide, himself a very great saint. And he said, he looks at her, he goes, I know, Ma, we know, but would you bless them anyway? Isn't that just sweet? And of course, he said she did, but her words were so true and so important for us. Wherever we are, whenever we're praying, whenever we remember to connect with God, that God's love and grace is shining everywhere. You know, we've all heard in one form or another, God already knows everything. Of course he does. He knows. This is what Christ said, and he said it so beautifully, though his words won't come to me exactly. But he said to his disciples, he knows what ye have need of before you know it. He knows everything because he is us. We are a manifestation of that pure divine energy. He already knows. It's us that needs to tune into that truth. And we do that by praying. We do that by offering ourselves in that way. When Sri Yukteswar writes about revealing the natural love of the heart, very deep, deep lesson that he shares. We all know it because it's a line in the autobiography of a yogi, but when you read it in his book, The Holy Science, he talks about it throughout the whole book. the absolute essence of opening your heart, revealing the natural love of the heart. That's what prayer does. That's what was, when I was listening to Keshava do this last chant, which, by the way, I hope it was okay. I thought this is a sacrilege. He comes up to me during purification, and I don't know about any of the other light bearers, but very often I don't know who it is. The voices take on a similar quality, but usually when I open my eyes to put my finger right on somebody's heart chakra, that's what I know. So I said to myself, oh, Keshav is here. I touched him, and the chant that I wanted in that moment came to me, that I wanted to ask him. Now, this is purification. They've already rehearsed. If they rehearse, they've already done whatever they're going to do. But it came to me that I would love to hear before this talk, receive me on thy lap, O Mother. Just those words, so beautiful. So as he stood up to go away, I held him back and I whispered in his ear, receive me on thy lap. First he looked at me, then he giggled. He got what I was saying. That was the chant. And he sang it so beautifully. You know, the way he ended it, cast me not at death's door, cast me not at delusion's door. Cast me not at death's door. Cast me not at delusion's door. With such yearning in his heart. It was so beautiful. That's what prayer is. And in that music, in those words, in the way it's communicated, I felt transported. My energy was. When we chant, when we pray, that's what's there. And the phrase that came to me in that moment is a phrase that we repeat every week in our Festival of Light. It is so beautiful. That phrase that says, the phrase left me, but the words didn't. Wordless yearning. A prayer of love, went up. A prayer goes up, but in wordless yearning, whatever it is, I don't want to lose the feeling of the wordless yearning. It's so beyond words. It's revealing the natural love of the heart. And it's wordless because, again, it's beyond it. And it's a yearning like nothing else we could know when we pray from that place. I love that line in the festival. I just always feel this when I hear it or when I'm reading it. Like, it's right from my heart. It's beautiful. Again, the way for us to pray, even when we hear those words. You know, when we hear the festival later, just remember, that was given to Swami Kriyananda. It was just delivered. There is not a word in that festival that doesn't have deep, profound, and expansive, infinite almost meaning. And whatever word we pick up, it happened in a class that I was teaching a couple of weeks ago in the prosperity class, Secrets of Prosperity, that many of us are doing together. But a word came up in that class, and then the class was about the word, because it's another word that Swamiji uses. It's, I hate that it's leaving me right now, because I'd love for you to feel it too. But the point is the point. It became an hour-long class, one word, because in it is a seed of everything we need. That's the way this is. Wordless yearning. If we could all sit down and pray like that, we too would be feeling these miracles. Well, we are. We all are. We're here. It's a miracle in and of itself. Mahatma Gandhi said it so differently. He said, prayer is not asking. He said, it's the longing of the soul. Very beautiful, the longing of the soul. So, let me just come to an end here. The most important message, I mean, these are all important messages, and the stories are wonderful, but Swamiji said in one of his writings, and I had never read this before, but it's so perfect. He says, God's real name is Om. Isn't that beautiful? Who thinks of it like that? God's real name is Om. He went on to say the vibration by which he's manifested all creation. Now, the reason that's important is because when we can recognize and honor that and live with that and tune into that vibration as we pray, whether we hear it, whether we feel it as pure love, whether we're listening to Om. Many of you have heard me say that most of the time in my home, in the community, I have Swamiji chanting Om very, very, very quietly in the background. You could almost miss it. Doesn't matter if we hear it, though. The vibration is being sent out. It's always there. And he said, when we're making a conscious connection to attune ourselves to that vibration, which is Om, we come upon his grace. His grace can then be revealed to us. And only in that way, only when we make that effort, when we're attentive, when we lift our energy up, hearts wide open, and just offer God our love and invite his love back. It hardly matters what we think we want in the world. It hardly matters. If we can pray with all of those qualities, believing, prayer demands, with great devotion, with focus, energy, we will receive because we will be perfectly attuned to that which is meant to be ours. God bless you.
Let's take a moment of reflection. And we'll have some music.